Hi, I'm Helena Nimmo and welcome to the Digital Necessity Answered. Today we're discussing the impact of digital in payment industry, and joining me in the hot seat is Nick Telford-Reed. Nick, let's start off by you telling us a little bit about yourself and what makes you tick in the morning.
Hi, Helena. Yeah, so my name's Nick Telford-Reed. I'm a director of Stormglass Consulting and an executive advisor at Endava, actually. What gets me excited, I love new. I love the thrill of the new. My last my last permanent role was running innovation at WorldPay. And I love finding out about new things, meeting new people. So actually, the lockdown's been quite challenging for me because one of the best bits of my job is, going out and meeting new people. And although we can meet digitally, there's nothing quite like, actually being with people and all the stuff that goes around the outside of those business interactions.
Super. So obviously you are an expert in the payment industry, and the payment industry is obviously seeing a transformation at the moment with cashless and online purchasing
Yeah.
becoming more and more prevalent. So what are you seeing there that are going to be some of the challenges in the industry at the moment, some of the digital breakages that are happening?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's funny. I've just been thinking today about refunds, for example. When COVID-19 hit, and suddenly all the airlines were having to, uh, make refunds for unflown tickets, for unflown inventory. And that's been a huge issue for the cards industry, for the payments industry generally, because normally the happy path is for payments to be flowing from the consumer to the merchant. The unhappy path is when it goes in the other direction. So those experiences don't tend to be so good. And we've seen also, some companies really damaging their brands by not offering full refunds and trying to, offer vouchers instead, when without really asking and without kind of getting permission. But also, what you get this funny thing where, if you've made transactions in one channel and then you try and refund them in another channel, so you made the original transaction physically and now you're trying to refund remotely, or the other way around. That's often a digital breakage, as you call it.
Okay, so out of all of that, so we've all seen the consumers backlash with the challenges, as you mentioned, in the airline and all the other refunds that have been happening. Have you seen any really shining examples of an innovative approach of trying to manage that process digitally differently?
Not specifically on refunds, but I guess for me, the most exciting thing that's happening in terms of kind of digital experience that's changed even in the last 6 months is the reason refunds are hard actually is because it's rooted in identity. So when you're making a payment to a consumer, there's kind of KYC, so know your customer and anti-money laundering legislation and all of that. But actually, I mean, identity is a fundamental problem in payments. Um, and that's always been really hard. So, recently we've seen redevelopment of things like 3D Secure, which is the kind of pop-up that you get when you're trying to make a card payment. But for me, the thing that's really exciting is the development of a set of standards called WebAuthn, which is short for Web Authentication, and it's a kind of cooperation between the FIDO Alliance and the World Wide Web Consortium. And in particular, it's now supported by the big platforms. So it's supported by Microsoft. If you log into your Windows machine with Windows Hello, that's essentially a WebAuthn authentication experience. It's supported in Chrome. It's supported in Mozilla. And it's now also in beta, just announced recently, supported in the world of Apple. So we're beginning to get to this place where you can have a consistent, strong authentication experience in digital channels, and have it be orchestrated by the platform in which you're operating. So I'm really excited about that, and particularly in combination with payments.
Okay, so that is very, very interesting, because obviously you said it there. It is all associated with the identity and the consumer.
Yeah.
So you mentioned some of the big names there that they're starting to take it onto the platform. When do you believe that we're really going to start seeing this in being used in anger in the consumer space?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I mean, it's live now. It's live now in Chrome. It's been like Windows. Microsoft have made a huge investment in this already over the past couple of years, and with Apple now also joining the party, I'm expecting to see consumers beginning to notice this. And actually, the thing is, because it's the platforms doing it, it's I don't think there's going to be like a real dislocation. I think it's experiences that you and I and most consumers will have already had, but we're going to see them in more and more use cases. So we'll see them in payments, we'll see them in logging into websites, we'll see them into doing all sorts. Whenever, at the moment we're maybe asked for a password or another factor for identification, instead, we'll have the operating system or the browser or, kind of prompting us to use a biometric or to use a PIN, and to get these kind of seamless identity experiences. So
Okay.
I think most consumers will see something like this in the next 6 months, and I think it'll be very widespread in 18.
Okay. Now it's quite interesting, because obviously when it starts coming onto platforms, that is more directing the consumer purchasing behavior onto the digital platforms, away from your more traditional brick and mortar channels. So how do you see that being the case?
Sure, I mean we're seeing that. I mean, I think the current COVID crisis is kind of accelerating a trend that we'd seen anywhere, which is the shift from physical to digital. There are some there are some there are some retail sectors that are hard to do or have historically been hard to do, like clothing, although there are some really innovative approaches there, people using digital modeling, or just saying, actually, do you know what, we'll make part of our service promise that you just order things and, then send them back. Actually, interestingly, anecdotally, I understand that's one of the things that also drives things like buy now, pay later experience from providers like Klarna. Where people are kind of buying things, trying them. They're also putting them on layaway through tools like Klarna, and so there's this, beginning to solve these experiences. That said, as we come out of lockdown, I'm expecting there to be a return to physical retail, because there's something about, touching, feeling, being around, smelling, the kind of sensory experience of being in a physical retail setting that's still really hard to replicate in digital. And I think the retailers that really succeed are those who really provide excellent experiences in the physical environment, and then also really work hard to blend the physical and the digital channels together, so that as a consumer, it doesn't matter. You'll engage with those brands, as you want to, and it's for the retailer and their providers to kind of figure out how to solve for that.
Okay, so obviously we talked there about a significant push towards digitization
Mhm.
in payments. What other the pushes are you seeing towards payment companies becoming more digital? Not just the kind of consumer purchasing behavior, but what other trends are you seeing in that space?
So, the demand for data is only ever more voracious. Merchants want more data so that they can derive better insights. Um, the payment providers want more data and more analysis so that they can, better shape their products. Consumers have a bit of there's a kind of dichotomy. There's a tension in the way that consumers think about data, because on the one hand, they're kind of aware of privacy and they want to be in control of that, and then on the other hand, they want things to be easy and they don't really want to confront complexity. So again, there's this kind of evolving trend of the people who will really succeed over the next 5 years are those who can provide the data and provide the insight that's built on top of that data, but do it in a way that's, you know, as just in time or just fit for purpose, so you don't swamp people in insight or swamp people, whether it's merchants, consumers, or anybody else in the ecosystem. You let people kind of present exactly what's right at just the right time.
Okay, and obviously there's the whole brand and reputation issue that you touched upon earlier, which is if we're consumers entrusting companies with our data,
Yeah,
making sure that it stays secure.
right. And you can see that with the browsers, right? And to go back to them, you know, that them making a point, you can see the browsers are moving more and more towards privacy first. I mean, and I say that, you know, slightly with a glib smile, because obviously, you know, I mean, Chrome, which is the biggest browser used in the world, is owned by Google, and Google is a business entirely driven by using your data to provide, you know, search results and advertising. But nevertheless, you know, I think, you know, in lots of different spaces, you're seeing people trying to differentiate themselves by having a kind of privacy-led approach. That said, uh, I still come back to the idea that in most cases, consumers, in my experience, will prioritize slick, frictionless experiences over privacy-led experiences until something bad happens, and then, you know, and then suddenly they want to have a conversation about privacy and data security. So it's an interesting tension.
Super. Well, Nick, thank you so much for your time. I guess it's the slickness of the process, which is the answer to digital necessity. So thank you very much for your time and participating in the conversation.
You're welcome. It was lovely to talk to you.